Donald Trump and China have agreed to a 90-day pause on their tariffs. Trump is touting a win and a great deal. The stock market is soaring. People are relieved and ecstatic. Does that mean the tariff war is over and that we won it? Well, the answer is basically no and no. See, the problem is people are still currently paying higher prices because we did not roll back the tariffs to where they were pre-Donald Trump tariffs. They're still higher than they were. Now, some of you are like, well, I like tariffs. I like this idea of, bringing manufacturing back to the United States. Okay, that's great, but it doesn't change the fact that people are still paying higher prices, which has some fairly negative impacts on the economy as a whole. In other words, the thing that's really happened here is Donald Trump created a situation that caused a lot of panic for a lot of people, and then he pulled back on it, and everyone went, oh, look, he fixed it. Well, the problem is it's not back to where it was before Donald Trump. Let's just look at some of the numbers very quickly. So we're talking about a baseline tariff rate on Chinese goods of still about 10% to 30%. In other words, we didn't go all the way back on it. And we still have taxes on steel, aluminum, automobiles, and all of these other taxes around the world, that much of which is paid by our consumers. 15% on average, about 30% on electronics. Now, this has raised consumer prices about 2.3%. So that ends up being about $3,800 that families are paying more for goods annually. And a large percentage, the majority of that, is hitting lower income families harder because they tend to have to make more purchases from places that make things at cheaper levels, like China. So they get hit really hard, and they have less money to spend already. So the impact is even greater on them. We're looking at a CPE increase of about 0.33%, which doesn't seem like much because it comes to about $4 or $5 more, say, if you're buying a new refrigerator. But the problem with that is it still adds up to billions across the economy and basically negative growth. So it's an inflationary pressure, right? Higher prices. The result of that is the Fed ends up being less inclined to reducing interest rates. That is why you might notice that your credit card bill ends up being higher. Your interest rate is harder to bring lower because they are basing it on what the Fed is doing. So home loans are harder to get. Your increases in car tax and increases in the interest rate on the loans on your new vehicles. And the people who get hit hardest by all of this ends up being people who make less money already and the poor. So we are not out of the woods yet. Recession is still on the horizon.